Vacations will never be the same. Welcome to the theme parks of Universal Orlando Resort. With spectacular hotels and more, Universal Orlando offers an entire week of vacation awesome. Visit universalorlando.com.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Ladies and gentlemen of our audience, I'm honored and privileged to bring onto the Let the Record Show one of our good friends, United States Senator Dan Sullivan from the state of Alaska. Dan is a former Attorney General of the state of Alaska, graduate of Harvard and Georgetown Law School, member of the Armed Services Committee, a distinguished military veteran, Marines, has military honors there, and an expert on, amongst other things, energy, foreign policy, national security, and he's our good friend. Senator, welcome to Let the Record Show.
Hey, Judge, Eric, Jesse, great to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm going to put you in the good hands of Eric first, then Jesse, and if these two gentlemen give me a couple of moments, I'll ask you a question too, Senator. Eric, you're a witness.
Well, thank you, Dan. Thanks for being with us. I know we always enjoy most talking about foreign policy, but let's start domestically. Tariffs. I'm curious as to how they're impacting Alaska and this, whether or not these are just as a general matter, and whether or not they're reaping a benefit, they're causing havoc. What's your reaction to them?
Well, look, I certainly, there's no surprise here with the President Trump, I think, ran one of the most transparent presidential elections ever, right? He laid out what he was going to do, and he talked about this issue a lot. And but I've been listening a lot to Secretary Bessent and Howard Lutnick, and I think the overall goal has always been to actually end up lowering the tariffs, right? And that means they've laid out the issue of reciprocity, which I strongly, strongly believe in. Matter of fact, I've had a bill every year in the Senate that's about the U.S.-China. It's the Reciprocal Trade Act. And, we don't have reciprocity with China. We don't have reciprocity in terms of trade and investment with almost any country. So the principle of reciprocity, I think most Americans understand. The goal, which I support, is if it can end up leading to lowering tariffs across the board with particularly our allies. This is what Secretary Bessent has been talking about now for a couple weeks. The 90-day pause gives them an opportunity to do that. And then we isolate China, right? There's this, big push by the Chinese Communist Party globally trying to blame President Trump with regard to undermining the international trading system. In my view, that charge is ridiculous. The Chinese Communist Party has been taking a wrecking ball to the international trading system for decades. They cheat, they lie, they subsidize their major industries like steel. They steal our intellectual property. They require forced technology transfers of any American company that's doing business there. They've been doing this, Eric, for decades. And my view is if the strategy of getting lower tariffs and agreements with our allies and then turning to collectively against China, which is what Secretary Bessent has talked about, President Trump has talked about it, I think we've been needing to do that for many, many years, and I support it. But it's not without disruptions, and it's going to be complicated. But going after the cancer of the international trading system, which is the Chinese Communist Party, is long overdue.
Yeah, I think most of the American people would support that confrontation with China in an effort to equalize trade or at least weaken China and to our benefit. The issue, of course, is the disruption and how much disruption the American voter is going to be willing to absorb, particularly if they look at their 401ks and you're on the verge of retirement. It may be a little more painful than you had anticipated. But I think the overarching goal, as you describe it, if we can achieve that, would be a win for the United States.
Well, let me mention one other area of caution that I think the administration has to keep in mind. You know, the president, as I mentioned, he ran on, he talked about tariffs a lot. But I would say the two biggest things the president ran on, and Republicans in the Senate who won their seats and beat incumbent Democrats, is number one, securing the border. And they have done a great job on that. As a matter of fact, I think they need to do more outreach to the media and the American people just on what an amazing job they've already done in such a short period of time. You know, the crossings are down, illegal crossings. Last estimate I saw was about 93%. It's just unbelievable, right? Biden had an open border. 10 million illegals came in, a lot of them criminals. President Trump has come in and within less than 100 days has essentially sealed the border. That he ran on. The American people overwhelmingly supported that, and he's doing it. And I think, I think they can highlight that a lot more. That was one of the biggest things. The other thing he ran on was inflation and bringing down the costs of, the cost of living in terms of the inflation. That it's clear that Biden 100% and the Democrats dramatically juiced inflation with their reckless spending policies. The caution on the tariffs is, if that leads to inflationary pressures, that's something they're going to have to consider very significantly, because that was one of the biggest things the president ran on, which was to bring down inflation. And if the tariffs are inflationary, I think that's going to, be paused with regard to their strategy. That's still, when you look at polling, it's still the number one issue. The American people are looking at the high cost of living, inflation. Now, first term, President Trump did a lot of tariffs on China. It did not have an inflationary impact, if you remember. But this could be different, and they got to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I think that speaks to your earlier point that we really need to thrash out trade agreements with our allies so that we can just focus on China. I think that'll
and have the overall arching goal of those agreements is to lower tariffs across the board with our allies. By the way, the other thing the president and Secretary Bessent have said just last week, and I had discussions with both of them on this topic, which I really appreciate, not only lower tariffs, but our allies in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, they need to commit to long-term agreements purchasing Alaska LNG. We have a large-scale LNG project that the president has done an amazing job of promoting. Biden and John Kerry, of course, tried to kill this. The president of the United States and his team have highlighted this as one of their top energy goals, the Alaska LNG project. And one of the things that they're publicly saying is we're going to reduce tariffs, but we need long-term offtake agreements from the Koreans, the Japanese, and Taiwanese. And, of course, I support that 100%. Helps my state, helps our country, and helps energy.
Yeah, I also think that the American people, depending on the goal, some people are willing to absorb pain to advance America's national interest. It's one thing to be at loggerheads with China. It's nothing to be absorbing pain to be at war with Canada. So I think that also matters. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about Iran.
Yeah.
So the administration has announced while he was meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel that there were going to be negotiations with Iran. There was a first round, and those negotiations were described by the administration as, being encouraging. Here's my take on it. I don't know why we're talking to them at all, because I don't know what it is we can give them. Because if the demand is that they not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, what is it that they would be willing to take in exchange for giving up a nuclear weapon, which they will not do, in my opinion. So the only answer to that is lifting of sanctions and washing them in cash. What will they do with that cash? As we know from the original nuclear deal, the JCPOA, as thrust down our throats by Obama and Kerry, is that they will not build schools and hospitals and roads. They will build bombs, ballistic missiles, fund terrorism, and expand their hegemonic goals in the region. So if we want to frustrate that, we can't lift sanctions. But if we don't lift sanctions, they're not going to agree to give up a nuclear weapons program. So since we can't give them anything in exchange for something that they won't give up, my question to you is, why are we talking to them at all?
Well, look, you and I see very, very, very much eye to eye on these issues. And by the way, I do want to commend you, Eric. I don't know where you find the time in the day, but you wrote another great piece in the JNS in terms of, the John Kerry op-ed in the Wall Street Journal and coming after that in a way that just took him down. He's the ultimate appeaser in chief of Iran, John Kerry. Guy has done more damage to our national security and foreign policy interests across the board, not just on Iran. But in Iran, he's been particularly horrendous. And, you called out how he's now saying, we need to make sure an agreement goes after their missile program and their terrorism with proxies. You're like, excuse me, what? You did not include that in your JCPOA negotiations, and you want it now a treaty, John Kerry? You didn't do that in the JCPOA negotiations either. So thank you for that great service. Your article was, as usual, spot on. Look, I think the Trump administration needs to start, and they already are, right where they left off at the end of their first administration. I think they had one of the most comprehensive and successful policies as it dealt with Iran. What was that? It was maximum pressure with regard to oil and gas that crushed the Iranian economy. It was going after the terrorists in a big way. The killing of Soleimani, something I talked to President Trump about, on more than one occasion.
A great day for America. A great day for America.
Great thing for America. And as you know, Eric, that guy was such a menace. He led the effort to kill and wound over 2,000 American service members when the Quds Force, led by Soleimani, was providing very sophisticated IEDs to Iraqi Shia militias. And, the numbers on that, as you know, killed over 600 American service members, our best and brightest, wounded over 2,000. And he was doing that while, John Kerry was palling around with the Iranian foreign minister. It was just sickening. So Trump brought the hammer down on that. Probably the biggest terrorist in the world killed him, which was very important. And by the way, the people said that, there was no deterrence after that. Completely have it wrong. Talk to the Israeli intel services and see the impact that what killing Soleimani did to the Iranians. They were scared to death. But the third thing President Trump did was he went on offense in terms of peace and Israeli normalization
the Abraham
through
Accords.
the Abraham Accords. So that was a very well thought out three-pronged strategy, maximum pressure to crush their economy, going after kinetically to kill their terrorists, and then launching a peace initiative as well. I think the president and his team need to start where they left off in the negotiations, with the Iranians. They just need to be very careful because, number one, and you know this, Eric, better than anybody, you can't trust them. The Iranians, they're like the Chinese. They lie on every single agreement they've ever had. They cheat, they lie. And so we have to be very, very, very careful in terms of any kind of negotiations. And the negotiations have to have a very clear mandate, and it's the clear dismantlement of any elements of a nuclear program, 100%. The president has been clear. Iran can never, ever get the bomb. And I think if you start with that, and the Iranians say to us, sorry, we're not going to agree to any of that, well, then the next options on the table might have to be kinetic with the Israelis.
Ladies, you'll end up shopping for your guy's deodorant, right? So try Degree's Original Cool Rush. You see, last year, Degree changed the formula, and men were mad. One guy even started a petition. So Degree admitted they messed up and brought the Original Cool Rush scent back. It's clean, crisp, and actually smells like someone you want to cuddle. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So toss one in your cart and find out why it's the best-selling men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory.
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like... All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
The number one selling product of its kind with over 20 years of research and innovation. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Senator, I have to turn you over to Jesse Garcia now. Jesse, questions for the Senator.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And let me begin by first thanking you for your long and wonderful career in military service. I think 30 years as a Marine and always a Marine. As a colonel, you left, I believe you're still, that's as your rank was. And of course, what you've done in public service. And I want to touch upon when you were the commissioner of Alaska's Department of Natural Resources. With energy being the way it is, you touched upon the Alaskan LNG. You know, you took on, someone that is on the front lines, whose constituency sits on these natural resources, and of course, also maintains the quality of life and preserving our environment. You took the point position of going after these Green New Deal scammers that tried to basically cripple your economy and basically stifle your ability in Alaska to utilize these natural resources for economic purposes, for national security. Let's talk about that, about the energy policies that you see now in partnership with the Trump administration to really truly release the power of American energy and its natural resources for our Americans here and our constituencies throughout the world.
Oh, Jesse, it's such a great question, and it's such a dynamic contrast between what Republicans believe and what far-left radical Democrats believe. Look, in my state in particular, the Democrats, the far-left Democrats, heck, all the Democrats, the National Democrats, their number one goal when they get into power is to shut down Alaska, shut us down. That's what Jimmy Carter did to us. That's what Obama did to us. And, no one did it like Joe Biden. The Biden administration, get this, issued 70 executive orders and executive actions exclusively and singularly focused on Alaska to shut us down. 7-0. It would have been more, but we stopped a few of them. These aren't like EPA, regulations that hurt the whole country in terms of our energy production. These were 70 executive orders and executive actions that exclusively, singularly, and only focused on crushing Alaska. So of course, this hurt my constituents. Thousands of jobs, direct and indirect jobs, were impacted, and but this hurts America. When you shut down the state that has the most resources, oil, gas, critical minerals, you name it, we have it, timber, you hurt the whole country. And it's a great strength of our country, American energy, and the Biden guys, because they were always, driven by what the far left radical wing of the party wanted. And that wing always wants to crush my state. Biden sanctioned Alaska more than he sanctioned Iran in Venezuela. Like, that's not a joke. That's not a
unbelievable
punchline. That is a true statement. When I talked about earlier with Eric, the maximum pressure campaign during the Trump administration's first term, by the end of that maximum pressure campaign, the Iranians had about $4 billion in foreign reserves. That's nothing. Their exports went down to about 200,000 barrels a day. Biden comes in and lifts all of that. By the end of the Biden administration, they're exporting about 1.6 million barrels a day, and they had about over $70 billion in terms of foreign reserves. What they use that for? We know what they use it for, to fund their proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. In the meantime, Biden is shutting down my state, my citizens, my workers. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. So anyways, the good news is on day one, and I'm very honored by this, of the Trump administration, I worked directly with the president and his team. On day one, President Trump, one of the first executive orders he signed was an executive order called Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential. And it is a really big EO. He signed it on day one. We're the only state that has our own executive order under President Trump. And it's all about unleashing American energy, unleashing Alaskan energy, unleashing our critical minerals. It really highlights the importance of this LNG project, which would be one of the biggest construction projects in the history of the country and would be a great counter to the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative to get to our allies in Asia, clean burning Alaskan natural gas. And it would create 15 to 20,000 jobs, big, building trades, union jobs, which are really important in my state. It could revitalize the steel industry of America. This is a giant win-win-win, and the president has been pressing this, not just in his executive order, his first meeting with the Japanese prime minister, half that meeting, he was pressing him on the Alaska LNG project. So is his cabinet. By the way, President Trump has put together the all-star energy cabinet members between Doug Burgum and Chris Wright, the secretaries of Interior, secretaries of Energy, Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is very focused on energy. So is Secretary Bessent. They're all focused on American energy, and this standing up of the new National Energy Dominance Council in the White House to prioritize the unleashing of American energy, Alaska energy, is just it's great for our domestic economy. It will help bring down the cost of energy, great for our workers, but it's also a huge, powerful tool of American foreign policy that, Biden, of course, crushed, and President Trump has unleashed that as a really important element of his administration's focus and policies.
Senator, as much as I hate to say this, the booth has told me that we've finished this segment. So
that's it, Richard. Blame the booth.
I blame the booth. Senator?
Well, hey, I'm never good at keeping my answers short.
No, Senator, you're the best.
You're great.
I always love when you come to visit us in New York. You sit next to me in Katz and Cosby. It's always my honor and privilege to spend time with you.
And I have a very, very happy...
Judge, we like it when you play north to Alaska.
Well,
on the program.
I promise you, when I see you next week, if you come into the studio, please get back to me. I want to put you on the show. I know Eric and I will be seeing you on Wednesday night. But if you want to come into the show, I promise you north to Alaska. This has been Senator Dan Sullivan.
And have a very happy Easter.
Happy Easter indeed.
Thank you.
Senator Dan
everybody.
Sullivan,
You
a
too.
great senator from the state of Alaska, and our very good friend. God bless you, Senator, and keep up the good work. Thank you very
Okay,
much for
thanks.
being on Let the Record
Judge,
Show.
Judge, Eric, thanks very much. Keep up the great work. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.